Ever since I drove the BMW X1 back in 2010, I've had a hard time defining it, because even though it competes against the more SUV-looking Audi Q3, the X1 has always looked and felt more like a big station wagon. Be that as it may, it's always been a big seller for the company, and now that BMW has released the second generation of what it calls its compact premium sports activity vehicle, things are a little clearer. This generation is taller than the outgoing model, and that, combined with some other changes, make it look instantly more SUV-like, deleting the uncertainty that I had. But while it may now be a little easier to classify, it's still not very different from the old one, is it? It seems they've taken the 3 Series approach, and by that I mean they've been a little conservative with the changes. So at first glance, it looks more like a thorough facelift than a complete redesign. It has an aggressive front end, but so did the old one. It has a wedge profile, but so did the old one. And even though the changes may not be too obvious, the overall effect is. About the most obvious change is the rear lights, which are now full LED units with BMW's now familiar L-shaped pattern. The vertical aero blades are also new. The front changes are more subtle, but give the X1 a look that's more in keeping with its activity vehicle positioning. Particularly nice, though, is the way the whole thing manages to merge that with a sporty look without looking incoherent. And sportiness was a very large part of the old X1's drive. In fact, it was the best thing about it. BMW have now, quite bravely, promised that this new model is better to drive than the old one. I say bravely because the entire engine lineup now consists exclusively of 4-cylinder motors. There is no more inline 6 option. On top of that, power in the 2-wheel drive versions now goes to the front wheels, which is fairly new territory for the company. Sure, their engineering staff aren't made up of monkeys, so it should still all be okay. But even so, because of their rear-wheel drive heritage, it'll have to be extra good in order to be convincing. But the verdict on that will only be known next year, because for now, the new X1 range is made up entirely of all-wheel drive versions, although there is a choice of 6-speed manual or 8-speed automatic gearboxes. What we've got is the xDrive20d, 140 kilowatts, 400 newton meters, 0 to 100 in 7.5 seconds. Power off the line is good, and the 8-speed automatic slips cogs easily enough to make sure there's always decent shove available. In fact, it'll pull all the way through to about 4,000 RPM, but beyond that is a bit of a mystery, because whether you're in sport mode or using the manual shift function of the gearbox, it never really goes anywhere beyond that. And if that was the end of the X1 story, I'd say the drive-in here is decent. But it's not the end of the story. If the engine was the first chapter in this particular book, I'd have to say it's not a very exciting one. But once the story starts evolving, it gets a lot more gripping. Quite literally, because the handling is superb. And it's not just about the all-wheel drive grip. It's about the way the suspension setup manages to take some pretty unfriendly roads and beat them into submission. And the more you push this car, the better it gets. Turn-in is quick and accurate, and it's matched to superb brakes. It's surprising because this just shouldn't be that kind of car. The X1 is supposed to be more about adventure and carrying stuff while going adventuring, rather than out-and-out driving fun. But that's what this car delivers. But it's not perfect. Steering feel has never been a big thing in the X1, and it's the same in here. And then there's the road noise. This car comes standard with 17-inch wheels. We've got the optional 18s. We've covered a lot of varying tar on this trip, and they've been consistently noisy. That's about the only shortcoming of the cabin, though. It's typically BMW in terms of layout and finishes. The raised seating position and decent spec make it a comfortable setup. The X1 has grown upwards by 5 centimeters, which has improved headroom, and space in the back is particularly impressive. An option for the interior is a fully adjustable second row of seats, meaning that they not only fold flat but can be moved forward and backwards, as well as have the seat back adjusted to different angles. Our test car featured all the best bits from BMW's technology pantry, including connected drive, which features the ability to stream internet radio and use BMW concierge services, as well as adding live traffic updates to the sat-nav. My first impression of this car was that it wasn't too different from the original, but after 2 days behind the wheel, it's fairly obvious that the first impression was wrong. The BMW X1 has grown up quite literally, and now with a stronger look, it has a solid identity. More space and updated tech means it's more user-friendly as well. And even though it is designed to appeal to those who enjoy an outdoor lifestyle, don't let that fool you into thinking that it doesn't offer a sporty and enjoyable drive as well. The 2-litre diesel in the xDrive20d delivers adequate power, although there's nothing above 4,000 RPM. The 8-speed auto box is smooth and quick. For a car designed around the key principle of versatility, it is a surprisingly enjoyable drive, with the all-wheel drive grip and capable suspension delivering even when pushing on. Pity about the noisy tyres though.